Good day, artists. Today we are going to be starting our 1-point exterior perspective. There are so many ways that you can customize this for what you want to do, but I'm just going to kind of give you some of the basic rules and how things work, and then you can customize it to what you want to do for yours. All right, so the first thing that we're going to have to do is create our horizon line. That's where the land meets the sky. And because I want this to be parallel to the sides, for some reason it's easier for me to see that when I turn my paper a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put my horizon here. You could put yours higher, you could put it lower, right? Again, remember that the vanishing point sits on the horizon line, and the vanishing point determines your eye line, you know, where your viewpoint. So if you put it down low, you're going to appear to be like, you know, pretty low on the ground. If you put it up high, it's going to be a higher viewpoint. So I'm just going to kind of put mine somewhere near the middle. Depends on how much sky you want, what it is you're trying to do. Now I'm using my paper wide, horizontally. It's actually called the landscape format or the landscape orientation, but you don't have to. You can use your paper vertically as well. But I'm going to go ahead and draw my horizon just like that. And I am going to choose a place for my vanishing point. All right, so I'm just gonna, just because, I'm just gonna put my vanishing point right smack in the middle. There we go. Now, we often start out one of these with a road. And for the road, there's some things you should consider, okay? Does the road have lines down the middle? Is it like a highway? Is it a dirt road? Is it a straight road? There are lots of different ways to make the road. Are you on the road? Okay, because if you, for instance, we were gonna make a little triangle, right? So let's just say that it's a dirt road, okay? And we make our line kind of like this. Now this road is going so far off into the distance that it visually disappears, all right? This kind of, because we're right underneath the vanishing point, it kind of looks like you are right here in the middle of the road. Now, if this were a road with lines down the middle and you were in the middle of the road, you know, your car is either going into the other lane of traffic or, you know, or you're walking down the road. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little line right here, and then I'm going to try to make kind of an equal amount on the other side. All right. If we do that, I'm going to darken the lines that I'm going to keep. If we do that, then it kind of appears like we're closer. Nope, I'm going to make this a little farther over. Anyway, it kind of looks like we are closer to this side of the road, but I'm going to make this side a little wider, just like that. Okay, and then, nope, it still looks like we're in the middle of the road. Interesting. Okay, here we go. I'm going to scoot this over then. I'm going to scoot this over here. Okay. So here's this, now it looks like we're super far up, like we're flying over the road. That's why. Okay, now let's just leave it like this for now. Just a note, if I made the road over here like this, and I covered this line, then it would appear that we were not on the road at all. The road is over here, and we are on the side of the road. So, depending on what you're trying to show your viewer, what kind of story you're trying to tell, those kinds of things can matter. All right, here we go. All right, so if you are making lines down the side of the road, down the middle of the road, gracious, we are going to, right here in the middle, we're going to make two little dots, just like that. Okay, 2 little dots right on the bottom. And those 2 little dots are going to go, surprise, to the vanishing point, right? And we're going to erase some of them, so I'm not going to make it too dark. So that would be a solid line down the middle of the road. But we aren't going to, we're not going to have a solid line. We want stripy lines because, you know, that's how we like it. So I'm going to horizontally draw myself a little line right here. And as we talked about earlier, things that are farther away in the distance appear to get smaller, right? And closer together as they go. So we're gonna kind of scoot this down a little bit. Those lines are not really as close as they sometimes appear. So we're gonna leave a little distance between the first line and the second line, boom. But this one needs to be smaller than this one. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just kind of estimate with my pencil and then I scoot it back a little bit. Boop. So it's gonna be somewhat like that. All right, this is kind of a, you know, it's kind of a pain, but you know what? It's gonna be worth it if it appears the way you want it to. Again, so here's the spacing between these two. I'm gonna bump it up and bring it down. I know that looks like it's crazy far, but, and it's getting so small right here, I'm just gonna eyeball it. Okay, so that one is gonna be smaller than that one. I can even take my fingers here and boop, right? You can barely even see it. There's a little spot, a little speck. So now you can erase the lines in between and your lines down the highway are gonna look a little more realistic than if you just drew random rectangles. All right, so now we have our road and we have all the space on either side. So you can make buildings, you can make trees. You can make trees on both sides, buildings on both sides, whatever it is that you would like to do. So I'm gonna show you one of the ways to make the trees. All right, so we need the place where the bottom of the tree starts. We need a place where the trunk stops and the leaves begin. And we need a place where the top of the leaves are gonna stop. So I'm gonna make 3 lines, and these are guidelines. So just decide how far away from the road you want the trees to be. Or they could be telephone poles, right? They don't have to be trees. But, so I'm gonna make a line. I'm gonna make a line that goes about to here, to this little dot right here. I'm gonna make a line, right above the horizon over here. And I'm gonna make a line, ooh, those are some big trees actually, now that I look at that. Compared to the road, remember we have to consider proportion, right? So I think I'm gonna make the trees a little smaller. I'm gonna make those a little smaller. So the trunk is gonna end right here and the tops of the trees are gonna end right here. Okay, so I'm gonna make my little guidelines. I'm gonna make a line down here. We gotta make sure we remember that one's the horizon line. I'm gonna make a line right here. Ooh, and I'm gonna make a line right here, okay? All right, now the thing about trees is that they grow vertically. You know, some trees are a little wonky, sure, but most of the time they grow up towards the sun. So when we draw our lines for our tree trunks, they will be vertical, okay? This is where the tree is gonna start. This is where the trunk of the tree is gonna end, right? Don't worry about that for now. It's not a lot of leafy greenage. I might make that bigger, but anyway, we'll see. So over here, I'm gonna make my first tree, and I am just going to draw a line like this. And then, you know, maybe like this. I don't want my tree to be too big. It's not gonna be a monster tree, right? And, oh, you know what I just did? I drew it to the horizon line. Silly me. Gotta be careful, gotta watch that stuff. Okay, so that is one of my trunks. Now the same thing applies, right, with these, as it did with the lines on the road. So sometimes what I'll do with the trees is I will kind of measure halfway and I'll say, okay, about halfway from here to here is there. Again, your trees can be closer together. They're your trees. So I'm gonna draw a line right there. Also, when we keep them farther apart, it makes it a lot easier to remember which part is trunk and which part is not trunk. All right, now this tree needs to be a little skinnier than that tree. So we are going to just, you know, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, right? Here we go. Now, right now it's starting to look like doors in a hallway. This is how you would draw doors in a hallway. And then, let's see, and then I'll go halfway between here and here. It's about there. And I will, and I got to make sure that I am vertical, right? I am lined up with the sides of the paper. This one's going to be even a little smaller. All right, halfway, right about there. Even smaller, teensy, boop. And then, you know, maybe just a little line right there because you're really not going to be able to see much more than that. Okay, so these are where the trunks are going to go. Now, they don't really look like trunks right now, and that's okay because we're going to fix that. But what the other thing that we want to make sure we do is to keep the greenery of the trees. And I think I am going to make the green a little taller. I feel like I'm skimping on my tree greens. All right, so this is the top of the tree. Sometimes what I will do is I'll kind of draw myself it almost looks like a lollipop. It can kind of come over that line to maintain that little circular shape. But what we want to do is we want to see how they're getting smaller. The circles are getting smaller. They're still right on top, kind of even like a lollipop, just like that. So that's the basic shape of our trees. Now, we are going to change these trees because the bottoms don't look right. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to make a little smile right on the bottom, just like that. A little smile, boop. And then I am going to erase that line. I don't need it anymore. This is where our trees will go. Boop. All right, that's where our trees will go. But these still don't look like trees. So sometimes what I'll do, right, trees are kind of lumpy and, right, I will draw kind of the, you know, the outline of the tree. I'll make it a little wiggly. And then at the bottom, I might actually even like kind of make some roots, right? Kind of like that. So now that's kind of like what our tree trunk looks like. Same thing over here, right? Here's my tree. There's a little root, and maybe I have a little piece over here. They don't all have to have little branches. Some of them can have more than one branch. And let's see, this one, root, and a little branch. It was a bad branch. Little root, and you can't even see those. All right, so now we have our trees. Now, if you're making a haunted thing for Halloween, that's fine. You might want to put, you know, a hole in the tree. You might want to put some little gravestones and things, and I can show you those later. But now it's time for the leaves of the tree, the big boofy leaf part. I like to take my pencil and just kind of give it a little wiggly, right? Just kind of wiggle it around, kind of like this around the outside, right? Doesn't have to be circular either. You know, trees aren't always circular. And then I might even, if you're going to outline this, I would save this part for the pen, right? You don't want to have to try to go over all those lines with a pen. So, right, you're going to, okay. Here we go. Little tree. And then if there are any lines in there that you would like to remove, you absolutely may. Now, obviously, you can't see the horizon through the tree, so we're going to leave that. But this line right here, that's the horizon still between the trees. We're going to leave that right there. And we're going to erase those lines that we don't need. And now we have a line of trees, right? Moving along the road. So there's one more thing that I wanted to show you. And that is, what if you don't want your road to be straight like a highway? What if you wanted your road to be kind of curvy? You can certainly do that, but you're going to still have to stay in the boundaries, and the curves are going to get bigger as they get closer to you, right? You can even kind of pop out like that, boom. And it's going to, right? It's going to, whatever this side does, this side does. So this one's, This one's going to curve this way. It's going to pop out a little bit. It's going to come in a little bit. It's going to pop out a little bit like that. And then you can erase. Honestly, there's too many variations and choices, right? So now maybe it looks more like it's in an orchard, right? There's your little country road. Maybe a little dirt road like this. All right, and we're gonna stop there. In the next example, I'm gonna show you how to do buildings.